Thank you so much for taking on the responsibility of being a cooperating teacher. We understand that opening up your rooms and taking the time with candidates is not an easy feat, but you were selected as a distinguished teacher in the field of special education. Illinois State University is committed to producing the highest quality of special educators. The Department of Special Education at Illinois State University is one of the largest and most respected special education programs in the country. Thank you for your involvement in our clinical experiences and making this experience so strong. As a cooperating teacher, or CT, you will be provided with many opportunities to give feedback to the teacher candidate in your classroom. In another presentation entitled Program Overview for Cooperating Teachers, there is much more of an in-depth look at all of the requirements and applications completed at the clinical level, specifically field-based. This presentation will focus specifically on suggestions and assistance providing feedback, as many CTs have identified that as an area of need. As a reminder, we encourage a gradual release model in all clinical settings. It is important initially for all candidates to learn the routines about the learners and curriculum when starting. All candidates are required to complete an IEP at a glance form to help gather some of that information before they begin to work with the students. They will also need to meet with you to establish routines for your working relationship. It is important to build a strong foundation that is very clear of expectations and what you would like to see, as well as what the program requires of the candidate. Take some time to get to know one another. Are there any non-negotiables that should be addressed? From cell phone usage to chewing gum, even pen clicking, this is important to discuss. What are the routines the classroom has? This is usually easier for candidates at the start of the school year to pick up and develop with you, but may be more difficult for everyone mid-year. Consider dress code, time to arrive and depart, schedules, student needs, paraprofessionals, space to keep their belongings, and curriculum. In addition, think about your teaching styles. The candidate will also provide you with a CT manual that outlines everything once again. Plan for when it would be a good time to meet. Please keep in mind we ask that you plan at least one consistent meeting time with which you both hold for reflecting together each week. Building a strong foundation will help to create trust and expectations so you can provide open, honest, and constructive feedback that the candidate will grow from. Your candidate will also let you know who their university supervisor and possibly coordinator is as well. The supervisor will provide visits with the candidate every few weeks. During this time, they will meet with you as well to check the candidate's materials, observe a lesson, and post-reflect with them. There will also be a time for just conversation between you and the supervisor alone. The university supervisor and coordinators are always available to you as a resource as well. Feedback is built into weekly reflections, which should be processed together, as well as a midterm and final rubric based off the Charlotte Danielson framework. Candidates should complete their portion of the weekly reflection form first, and then allow you time to comment on the week on that form as well. Then you can use the weekly reflection form as a tool to help provide weekly structured feedback. The midterm and final rubrics allow for this reflection on a more in-depth level. Candidates should complete the midterm and final rubrics on their own and then compare their results to how you have assessed them independently on the rubrics provided in your CT manual. These times can lead to structured conversations with both constructive feedback, areas to improve, as well as a highlighting of areas the candidate is doing well in. On the Danielson midterm and final rubrics, you will see that the distinguished column has been grayed out. Our department feels this is an area veteran teachers are looking to achieve, and it is not a realistic measure of a pre-service teacher. Please select proficient, emerging, or significant improvement needed. Below, you will see boxes for comments as well. Different portions of each box can be selected and highlighted. Comments can be added to those boxes below, and you can simply use a different color at the final evaluation time to highlight if you prefer. Candidates will provide you with their lesson plans at least 2 days in advance. At this point in time, you will need to initial each plan after you have read through it. This is your opportunity to also provide feedback to your candidates on anything you would suggest they improve prior to instructing the lesson. For example, if you see that the candidate often is not providing a strong anticipatory set to gain the learner's interest, you may want to review that section of the lesson plan with them. This is also a good time to point out any positives you have seen as well. Observations can be done through a structured observation forms or anecdotally. It is suggested to especially take observational data for your candidate when they begin a new content area takeover. During the observations, you may have targeted areas you are watching closely, such as behavior management, student engagement, or so on. Or you may take more general notes to discuss. Supervisor visits will also provide a time for you to give the candidates supervisor feedback on how things are going. The supervisor will usually want to speak with you for about 10 minutes prior to the observation. During this time, you can discuss any areas of growth or concern you may have. The supervisor and coordinator are always available via email or a phone call as well if it is not a visit week. Please do not feel like you must wait until a visit if there is an issue or you would like support. The above mentioned opportunities are all times for the CT to provide feedback to the candidate. Many CT candidate pairs develop a routine of daily reflection or set a specific time each week to reflect together on the weekly reflection form. The following slides offer suggestions and strategies to help provide feedback to candidates after an observation or co-teaching together. You may also consider having the candidate video themselves and review and analyze the video either together or separately. This can provide a time for CTs to observe as well if they aren't able to during the actual lesson, if they are acting as a para, with their own small group, etc. Candidates will have provided video approval forms for the students as they are required to video for their EdTPA. PQS stands for Praise, Question, and Suggestions and is a structured feedback suggestion. It is best if all components are observational, that is, anyone could observe what you are discussing. PQS is often used after an observation but could also be used when reflecting. Typically, beginning conversations with areas of praise will help to deliver the areas of growth or areas of need of improvement with a bit more ease. This also provides candidates with feedback on what they are doing well and should continue to do. Questions may be a way to help the candidate see their errors on their own. This may lead to some aha moments coming from the students themselves rather than from you having to spell everything out. Sometimes questions allow you to understand what they are thinking and help you to identify error patterns. Suggestions are what you would like to see implemented differently. These then become the next steps for the candidates to focus on. Many times you could have the next observation or reflection structured around how well the suggestions were implemented. In the example explained on this slide, the CT might say the following. For praise, I love how you engaged all the learners by asking specific questions. For a question, I'm wondering if you created a communication board for this lesson if some of the students could have participated even more. And then a suggestion. In the future, you need to provide visuals or a field of 2 choices as well as the communication board, and we can see how that works. In this example, starting with the praise of the questions asked is observable. Then the question may allow for students to explain their thinking and also give an idea of what they may self-identify as an area of need. Finally, the suggestion is actually more than a suggestion. By using language such as you need to, it gives a clear picture to the candidate of the next step required of them. Feedback stems offer options that may help you deliver your message to the candidates in a way you would not have originally phrased it. Feedback stems can be used to help you plan out what you may want to discuss or when your candidate is having a difficult time implementing feedback or making changes. The feedback stems may help you to say your message in another way and seek clarity from the candidate as well. Paraphrasing feedback stems help to repeat back what the candidate is saying and make certain you are both on the same page. The mediational question stems really match the cue of the PQS strategy and allow you to phrase feedback or advice in a question form to help the candidate draw their own conclusion. Sometimes as a cooperating teacher, you may notice a candidate handling a situation in your classroom very differently than you would have. Often using the clarifying or teachable moment stems will help you to walk through why they made that decision and how you may have reacted in that moment or situation differently. Feedback stems can also be utilized when the candidate is not receiving your feedback well or failing to implement changes. Often, using the non judgmental responses will help if you have a candidate that seems more sensitive or defensive. One word of caution with the suggestion stems would be to make sure you have followed up the suggestion with a clear direction or next step. Sometimes CTs may offer suggestions and candidates may struggle to implement them if they didn't understand them to be a directive. It is not often that this occurs, but you could feel faced with a situation where a candidate is not implementing suggestions or feedback. For others, they may not have experienced receiving constructive feedback and could become defensive. If you are facing a challenge with your candidate, from a lack of preparedness to difficulty working with paras or even implementing the feedback, we hope that you would be able to utilize some of the suggestions given and have a constructive conversation. However, if something was ever alarming or you need to discuss, please do remember that the university supervisor and coordinators are always there as a resource as well. If you do have to have one of those more difficult conversations, it may help if you use data and observations to support your conversation. Please try and document the meeting and ask the candidate to take notes. Be confident in your feedback. You are an expert and were selected for a reason. We know you already have many responsibilities, so we thank you for taking this on as another. It is not often that you may need to have these hard conversations, but if you do, Abrams suggests to be ready and comfortable to share by having your thoughts written out, meeting in a private spot free of distractions or others, and let the candidate know you would like to talk. Then be explicit in the behaviors or issues you are sharing. Try and be as clear with your thoughts and offer specific next steps you need to see implemented and a timeline for implementation if needed. Try to proactively think of language you might use to avoid negativity or frustration. Remember, being proactive is the best option in avoiding these hard conversations. Additional resources may be found with these sites: 7 Keys to Effective Feedback, Edutopia, Evidence-Based Strategies for Feedback, 20 Tips for Effective Feedback, and Providing Effective Feedback to Teachers. Thank you so much again for your partnership with ISU. Please follow us or join us in the conversation on Flipgrid. Again, please feel free to reach out to the coordinators or university supervisors if ever in need or with questions. The Chicagoland coordinators are Courtney File and Crystal Lewis Prattle, and the CPS coordinator is Ashley Walensky Norton.